Friends, before I share today's horror story, let me tell you something interesting. Around 80% of the people who watch our videos enjoy them but haven't subscribed to our channel yet. If you're one of those 80%, all you need to do is click the subscribe button below this video. If you want, you can also hit the bell icon so you're the first to know whenever we upload a new video. Now let's dive into the story of El Silbon, the urban horror legend. This tale takes place in the 1980s in a serene village called Santa Rosa, nestled in the heart of South America. Surrounded by lush green fields and endless farmland, it was a peaceful place. Near one of these fields, a young man named Carlos Rivera was staying at his uncle's house during his summer break. In those days, people went to bed early, so everyone had dinner and retired for the night by sunset. Carlos lay down on his bed but couldn't sleep. He was staring at the ceiling fan when suddenly, he heard loud, panicked noises coming from the animals outside. He got up and went to investigate. The sounds were coming from a nearby barn where several cows were kept. Carlos looked up at the sky and saw it covered with dark, ominous clouds. He assumed the cows were restless because of the approaching storm, so he decided to move them into the inner stable. As he tried to guide the cows inside, he noticed they were unusually frantic. It was difficult for him to handle them, and the rain began to pour heavily. After managing to move a few cows inside, he noticed a foul, rotting smell. The more cows he moved, the stronger the stench became. When only a handful of cows were left, he saw the bloody remains of an old cow lying on the ground. Terrified, Carlos froze and started screaming. Before he could run away or do anything, he heard a distant whistle cutting through the heavy rain. The sound was so horrifying that it sent chills down his spine. He immediately realized it was the whistle of El Silbon, a legendary figure he had heard about in stories. Carlos knew he was in grave danger because El Silbon was coming for him. Carlos remembered the tales his relatives used to tell him about El Silbon. One such story was about a farmer who encountered El Silbon while riding his horse through a deserted field at night. The horse tripped on something, and when the farmer got down to check, he found the bones of a deer with flesh still hanging from them. Before he could understand what was happening, he heard a bone-chilling whistle. He tried to get back on his horse, but it was too late. Something large leaped from a nearby tree, and the farmer was struck on the head with a bone, splitting his skull. He screamed for help, but no one came. A 19-foot-tall, monstrous figure stood before him, wearing a hat but with a decaying body. The creature pulled bones from a sack and began beating the farmer to death, eventually eating his flesh. The next morning, villagers found the farmer's skeletonized body. Carlos's mind raced with these memories as he saw a long, eerie shadow appear on the ground. From the shadow emerged a towering figure, wearing a straw hat, with rotting flesh hanging from its body. It was El Silbon. The creature started walking toward Carlos, its sack of bones clattering and blood dripping from it. Carlos's heart pounded as he realized he was about to meet the same fate. El Silbon climbed trees, leaping from one to another, chasing Carlos. Just as the creature was about to grab him with its long, decaying arms, a dog's bark echoed through the night. El Silbon, terrified of dogs, vanished into thin air. Carlos's loyal dog had come to his rescue. Carlos believed that if his dog hadn't shown up, his bones would have ended up in El Silbon's sack. After that night, Carlos couldn't stop thinking about El Silbon. He asked his relatives and other villagers about the legend and learned even more horrifying details. According to the stories, El Silbon was once a spoiled boy who lived with his family in the 18th century. One day he asked his father to bring deer meat for dinner. When his father returned empty-handed, the boy became furious. His mother gave him a kitchen knife for protection and sent him to find his father in the forest. The boy returned with a sack full of meat, organs and bones, claiming it was deer meat. His mother grew suspicious and told his grandfather, who tied the boy to a tree and beat him until he confessed. The boy admitted that he had killed his father in a fit of rage, chopped up his body, and brought the pieces home in the sack. Enraged, the grandfather continued to beat the boy until his flesh hung from his body. He then poured chili and alcohol on the boy's wounds, tied a sack of his father's remains to his back, and set 2 ferocious dogs on him, banishing him to wander forever. It's said that the boy's spirit became El Silbon, who now roams the area, whistling from the trees and attacking anyone who wanders the fields at night. The only thing El Silbón fears is dogs, which is why most households in the region keep dogs for protection. Carlos survived that night because of his dog, but he knew he had come face to face with death. If it weren't for his loyal pet, he would have become another victim of El Silbón. Friends, if you enjoyed this urban horror legend of El Silbón, don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying stories every week. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling tales.